Welcome, everyone. It's the cryptolark. Very excited today to have the chance to speak with Han from cryptobriefing.com. Han, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going, Lark? It's been a while. Very excited to be here.
Great to have you on, and thanks for taking a few minutes out of your trip out there in Hawaii to sit down and have a little bit of a chat with us. Now, before we dive in, I just want to let everyone know what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about altcoins, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin, we're going to be talking about regulations and all kinds of stuff. So it's going to be a really great chat. So make sure you stick around for it. Lots of value in this chat. And I just want to mention beforehand as well that this is not a sponsored video, although I am an affiliate for Symmetry, which is a product that Crypto Briefing offers that gives you coins on the move, digital asset reports on the hottest digital assets. It's an absolutely amazing product, and there's a link down below if you want to learn some more about that. Now, that being said, I think let's jump right into some good juicy stuff. So the Bitcoin halving is getting quite close these days. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so generally speaking, I'm pretty bullish about the halving, the upcoming halving. The general narrative is that the halving will reduce the amount of Bitcoin in circulation, and that the block rewards will go from 12 and a half to 6 and a quarter. And if you look at we did a little bit of research into this, and if you look at Bitcoin price from a historical basis, in the first halving was in November 2012, and the second one was in July of 2016. And the first halving, 1 year prior to the halving, produced a gain of about 5x, but it was the year after the halving that returned about 82x. And the same thing happened in 2016. We saw about a 2x gain in a year prior to the halving, and about a 27x in a 1.5 year after the halving. Now, of course, the second halving, the year and a half following the second halving, a lot of that, was also highly correlated with the 2017 boom, the ICO boom, Ethereum boom, and so there's definitely a little bit of causation correlation there. But is it priced in? I think that's kind of like the number one question that we're getting a lot. And so we've thought about this question quite a bit as well, and to a certain extent, I think the people that are in Bitcoin, the people that are holding Bitcoin, the people that are watching, analyzing, and looking at it, yeah, to a certain extent, I think it is priced in. But what we're not really considering is the people that will be coming into the market, whether it's new retail, the institutional guys. That is, that's not quite priced in. And so, generally speaking, I think we're certainly long Bitcoin, very bullish Bitcoin, and I don't see an immediate catalyst from the halving or leading up to the halving. I think it's gonna continue to be rocky coming up, leading up to the halving. But I think the year after that is where a lot of the action we're gonna see.
Yeah, I think a lot of the people who have been watching the historical trends are looking forward to that moment, 12 to 18 months after the halvings that we've seen it kind of play out before. And obviously, a lot of the new retail people who come in probably won't be aware of this trend, but people who are here watching now and are listening to these kinds of conversations will have a definite edge on the people who are going to be coming in over the next 6 to 12 months. Now, Bitcoin has been obviously a big trend leader, particularly in 2019. The Bitcoin halving is getting a lot of focus these days. But I think the thing that's really captured a lot of people's imagination over the last few weeks in particular has been the rise of altcoins from their, 99% negative graves. And we're seeing some of these come back to life. We've seen a lot of altcoins that have done, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10x in the last couple of weeks. Some of the big market cap coins have gone up 50% or more, or 60, 70, 80%. Some of these just absolutely going crazy. So what are your feeling on altcoins right now? Are there any altcoins in particular that you've kind of got your eye on?
Yeah, of course, the big one is Ethereum. I think we're very bullish on Ethereum. We saw pretty significant moves over the past, even 30 days or so. We do think that this momentum will continue. I personally like where Ethereum's at. I like its momentum in the DeFi space. If we look at just kind of basic supply and demand, if the supply stays the same and the demand increases, then price should go up. So during the ICO boom, the demand increased. People needed Ethereum to contribute to ICOs. Price went up. Went from 8 to 40 to I think, and then 80, and then 300, and then at some point 1,200. Right. Right now we're seeing a good amount of momentum picking up in the DeFi space, and a good chunk of that is from locking up Ethereum. So as people move into the space, as people continue to lock up Ethereum, that demand is going to increase. There's a sink over there, and so definitely very bullish on Ethereum. I like exchange coins. Security or non-security. There's something happening there. It's kind of a derivative of value, of profits from the exchange. And so when you look at coins like BNB or HT, these are some of the things that I like. And of course, this as always, privacy coins, Monero, definitely like where that's how that's developing. And those are some of the big ones.
It's interesting. The privacy coins, obviously, they've, I think, remained perennially popular, especially as we see more regulations coming out against privacy coins and things like this. But the exchange coins is a really interesting one because we've seen just what an absolute leader Binance has been in terms of the exchange coin. If you actually look at the top sort of 50 coins, and what are you going to see there? You're going to see the Binance coin, you're going to see the Bitfinex coin, you're going to see the Huobi coin, you're going to see KuCoin's coin. I don't know if they're in the top 50 these days, but still, a lot of those are really high up there, and these coins that offer discounts and exclusive access to IEOs. And the thing that strikes me though about all the tokens for exchanges is just how much of a leader Binance has been in all of this. I mean, Binance does it, everyone else adopts it. Binance does it, everyone else adopts it. Yeah. It's actually quite shocking to see how much of a market leader they are. Do you see anyone else kind of being able to, I don't know, unthrone Binance from kind of being the king of exchanges right now?
I think a lot of that is going to come down to regulation and relationships with governments, and how the priorities of these exchanges and how they want to play some of these, play the regulation game. I think Binance has done a really good job of just kind of moving fast, and building and just launching and opening up and giving people access to a multitude of products and altcoins to speculate on. I think as regulation is slowly starting to form, it's not non-existent like it was in 2016, but it's not clear. So we're starting to see the formation of it. We're starting to get more indication that more is going to come out. But I think there are some players in the industry, and some exchanges that may be playing it a little bit more conservative. And some of these guys might end up with an upper hand by being more conservative, and being a little bit less disruptive. But I think we'll see if that. We'll see if the governments that that they try to appeal to will. Well, if they'll be able to reap the rewards from that.
Yeah, it's a tricky game trying to appease the regulator overlords. There's always something new, and then political tides shift, and all of a sudden, even all that work goes out the window because a politician made a decision that the regulators, the bureaucrat types, may not want to see happen. Now, the decentralized finance trend. This is something that's been crazy big recently. There's just so much excitement we're seeing around decentralized finance happening. I mean, you guys over at with the Symmetry reports, there's been some really great reports out on Kava, on Telor and Synthetics and a couple others. And just, I think the impact that these sort of projects are starting to have is absolutely massive. We've seen Synthetics, for example, grow a lot with a lot of people now using their exchange. Obviously, Maker's been very impactful over time. We have new players that are coming in to try to add on to the space outside of the Ethereum zone. So, what are some of your thoughts on the decentralized finance trend, and what do you think we kind of need to see it going to the next level?
Yeah. So, I mean, the trend is just absolutely incredible. I think in 24 months, we saw decentralized finance in 2017, 18, 18 and 19 grow from 0 to 700 million. But in the last 5 weeks, it's almost doubled to 1.2 billion, right? So the momentum is just absolutely insane right now. Long term, I think it's very, very exciting. I think the promises of DeFi is quite phenomenal. When the idea that anyone in the world can get access to traditional financial instruments and products the way somebody from New York can.
Maybe not New York specifically with all the crazy crypto laws.
Okay, so Connecticut,
but the rest of America. Sorry,
the rest
New York.
of the rest of the U.S. except for New York. But yeah, I think that the prospect of that is very much in line with the mantra of blockchain and what blockchain stands for and why it's gained the following that it has. In the short term, I think it's a little scary. It's we're kind of like skating on thin ice right now. For lack of a better word, it's kind of a house of cards. You've got layers and layers of DeFi contracts on top of each other, leveraged on top of leveraging, and so it's a little scary. I think I think it's going to be interesting seeing what kind of risk mitigation strategies some of these DeFi protocols and applications start implementing. I think, but in order for them to really, you can model all day long. I'm sure we've done some modeling of ourselves and to assess where the potential attack vectors might be. You can model it all day long, but until it's actually done and someone actually goes and does it, it's really hard to see where those openings and gaps might be. So in the short term, it's a little scary. I think in the short term, we're going to need to see a couple of hacks, manipulations. People are going to lose money. Some people are going to lose a little money. Some people are going to lose a lot of money. We saw that in the last couple of weeks. Some significant manipulation as well. I think that these are growing pains with any industry. We're going to have to stumble and fall if we want to run. So I think is a good it's a good place to be. I think the early adopters, these guys are willing to take the risk. These guys are willing to experiment. I think overall it's very exciting, but I just kind of want to give a word of caution. It's very, very early days right now, and a lot of these even if they are audited contracts, the attack vectors don't really care about the strength of the smart contract. A lot of it comes down to the actual model of the applications.
Yeah, I think that's just a great point, because I talk about decentralized finance a lot. A lot of people are talking about decentralized finance right now. It's such a big trend. It's very popular, right? But I think just because there's a working product, it can lure people into a false sense of security that this is all very new, relatively experimental technology at this stage. Sure, it works, but what are the different attack vectors that might not even be seen by people looking in, the teams themselves, auditors looking in? I mean, we've just seen a big exploit this week with BZX, where basically it was nothing was hacked, the smart contract wasn't compromised, this person gamed the system, right? So they were able to game the system for about $1 million worth of Ethereum, which is a pretty significant play for a week, assuming it was the same person in both instances. It's definitely a lot of money. So like you said, it's growing pains, and I think that's also to a small extent why we've seen such a rise in popularity of these different services on centralized exchanges. Because I think people have a greater trust factor for someone like Coinbase or Binance, for example, to be staking their coins or to be doing whatever it is. And as we see different options for these centralized exchanges adopting some of the decentralized finance stuff, that's going to go as well. But again, still there's risk factors in all this stuff without a doubt. Now, one thing I think has been interesting is like, smart contract insurance from Nexus Mutual, for example. That's a pretty interesting idea in terms of, well, if the smart contract fails, you're insured for that. So I guess kind of playing off that idea, what do you think is coming next for decentralized finance?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a few stepping stones to get to this place, but I think the end goal, what we'd like to see is uncollateralized or under-collateralized loans. If you think about how the world works today, you don't take out a loan by putting up the same amount of money you want to take out, or more amount of money than you want to take out. Kind of defeats the purpose of the loan, right? So for us to live in a truly decentralized world, that blockchain, the promise is to bring, we need to move into an under collateralized world, and then eventually the non collateralized loan. And a lot of the data that is being built today, that's kind of being accrued from all these different products that people are using, can hopefully help drive us to that point and give us the data points for that. And so I think that's the end goal. I think that's where I'd love to see DeFi go. And what the steps are in the interim to get there. I think the market will have to figure that out. But to speak to the Nexus Mutual, I think I think they can help mitigate certain risks when it comes to smart contracts, but as we've seen with BZX, they aren't covering. They are not covering the losses there due to manipulation.
That's right. Well, it wasn't the smart contract didn't break. Somebody just gamed the system.
Yeah. So they're maybe somebody will come up with insurance for gaming, gaming a DeFi protocol, a DeFi application. So I think the more of these products that come out that help mitigate people's risks, I think that'll make the space a little bit more exciting. Right now, you've got it's the people that are moving into it, have very, very high risk tolerance. And so, these are the pioneers. These are the cowboys that are locking up and have the 1.2 billion worth of assets, locked up right now. And so, good for those guys. Kudos and thanks for blazing the trail.
Yeah, someone's got to do it, right? The mistakes we made, and it'll be thanks to the people who are willing to put their money on the line to see those mistakes be made. Now, decentralized finance is one thing. There's another topic that's actually got me very interested recently, and it's, I think, an interesting time to talk about it because we've just seen the mainnet launch for Engine, and so this is about gaming in crypto. I think it's such a cool niche that really has the potential to bring a lot of people into crypto, particularly get them while they're young, get them into crypto, get them using Ethereum and Ethereum-based assets and all this kind of stuff, and then you'll have crypto users for life. Do you have any thoughts on the rise of gaming in the crypto industry?
Yeah, no, for sure. Gaming's very exciting. Gods on Chain just raised $50 million from Naspers and Galaxy. Gaming, NFT tokens. It's really exciting because this is one of the biggest things that's come out of blockchain is the idea of digital scarcity and being able to probably know that you have something that's unique. I think if you're just looking back at the game industry on a fundamental level, tokenization, gamification, point system, reward systems, the game industry was kind of built for blockchain. Blockchain was almost built for the gaming industry. So the idea now that you can kind of earn or use in a game that can change your status within a game that somebody can't replicate or counterfeit is remarkable. And I think on a on a fundamental level, it putting all that on a blockchain, it does help align the incentives of the developers, the users, and the publishers. And so I think that's another promise of blockchain, that if through this this centralized world, you can utilize crypto to help align the incentives all parties involved, then you've got you've got yourself a much more healthy and sustainable ecosystem. So definitely bullish on NFTs, on gaming, and definitely curious to see where that's going.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about, I guess, the rise of gaming in cryptocurrency is that I remember back to the start of when people started to, we're going to do games in cryptocurrency, and it was all like, I don't know, 80s style, retro kind of throwback stuff, because that's just, you had blockchain developers building games, not game developers building on blockchain. Now we've got games that are like, wow, that looks freaking awesome kind of games, and that's what's going to bring a new generation of crypto users in. Now, I want to get your thoughts on the IEO market. Now, this is something that was a big trend, right? That kicked off the whole 2019 thing. IEOs was the big new thing, and Binance was doing them, and everybody was doing them, and then it just stopped largely. I mean, Binance still has a couple IEOs, but why do you think the IEO market just went down so quickly?
Well, it was the same shit. I mean, it was the same shit as ICOs. It was no different from an ICO, except this time, you've got an exchange saying, okay, well, this one is a good one. This one is something we stand by. But they're not aligned, because they're still aligned to make money from these IEOs. They have, the exchanges have a bunch of these tokens, and they're aligned to see some short-term profits. So I think the problem we saw with IEOs is the same problem we saw with ICOs, which is you got a very few amount of people with a significant amount of holdings, a lack of distribution of the private sale tokens, and when the retail money goes in and the top level kind of gets pushed around, the bottom levels of the private sales kind of sell out, and then you have the gap, and then everything kind of collapses. So I think IEOs were no different than ICOs. It's the same thing, except some of the exchanges were pretty quick to capitalize on a trend. But I think overall, I think most of us saw that as a pretty short-lived thing. I think we had an over/under on IEOs, whether the game would last 6 months or 9 months or 12 months. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting bet to be taken. Now, it's interesting because I think there was very few really solid projects that kind of came out of the IEO boom, and I think a lot of those actually ended up going to Binance. And I remember seeing a chart basically showing the returns since IEO on different exchanges, and the majority of exchanges which got into the IEO game listed IEOs that were just second tier, third tier, 10th tier, like really just so much total garbage, right? And they listed that stuff anyway, and a lot of it just listed and went down, whereas Binance has relatively consistently been able to continue to deliver high quality, valuable projects to people. And I think a lot of those more high quality projects actually seek to get on Binance for the IEO, because they know that it's a good place of obvious liquidity and all that stuff. So it'll be interesting to see if anyone can ever again uncrown Binance from their from their IEO throne. Now, IEOs, obviously, that was 2019. Brad Garlinghouse from Ripple, he brought up something that might make 2020 and beyond very interesting in terms of the IPO. So he was saying that Ripple might be doing an IPO in 2020. He said within the next year, so I guess technically that could be January or February 2021, but potentially sometime this year we might see a Ripple IPO. Do you think this is going to be one of the next big trends in crypto, seeing major companies like Ripple or even Binance and others doing IPOs?
I don't know. I mean, I have mixed feelings about Ripple and their IPO. I think it's 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 a tough sell. Their balance sheet is probably mostly just XRP. And how are you going to get revenue from XRP? You're going to sell. You're going to sell to who? To the retail guys. So I'd love to see an IPO that where there's more IP, there's more of a product, and the more usage, and on of the actual currency being that's sitting on their balance sheet. So definitely a mixed bag for me. But I think when it comes to IPOs, love to see products that have real usage, that are actively being used, and have a pretty distributed system. Of course, XRP is not very decentralized. In fact, I think it's extremely centralized. I think it's all owned by the nodes are controlled by XRP. So love to see a real crypto, real decentralized project go IPO. That'd be interesting.
I think what we're probably going to see is exchanges going with IPOs. I mean, a Coinbase IPO, a Gemini IPO, a Kraken IPO. I mean, this is all, I know they've all done private round raises before. Whether or not they'll actually do an IPO, whether they need to do an IPO is a whole different question. In terms of projects doing, I mean, that then becomes a very interesting equation. Will we actually see a more decentralized network trying to raise money for an IPO, and if so, what are they actually selling? There's so many questions around the Ripple IPO, right? Because they've spent a lot of time trying to say, no, Ripple and XRP are very, very different. We're going to do an IPO for Ripple, because of its relationship to XRP and the products that we're selling with, on-demand liquidity and all that stuff. So I'm not sure that another cryptocurrency necessarily would be in the same kind of category and have the option. Maybe, I don't know, maybe something like Hashgraph, right? We could see that doing an IPO, for example, but very interesting.
It doesn't have to be the actual crypto project itself. It could be, somebody that's built an application layer or whatnot on top of, different crypto projects that has actually utilized crypto in an interesting way, and has a product that actually has traction and usage. So I think there's a number of ways that can happen. Yeah.
Maybe the basic attention token. Maybe the Brave browser guys. I could see them potentially as a token project, right? That could actually has enough traction to launch an IPO.
Yeah, that's an interesting example. Yeah.
Basic attention token. I love it. Brave browser. Good stuff. All right. Well, the final question I want to follow up with you here about is basically about U.S. regulations. So we've seen a lot of different kind of things being announced. Now, Mnuchin's out there saying, we're going to have some significant things to say about crypto here in the near future, but we're not going to say what that is, but it's going to be very significant, right? So do you think that the U.S. is doing regulations right at the moment? And if not, what could they be doing better?
Do I think they're doing it right? I'd love to see them move a little bit faster. I think they're doing what they have to do. They're trying to clean up the system. They're trying to clean up the industry a bit so they can. And I think it's good. I think the regulation that I think the action that they've taken has been good. If we want to see serious money move into space, if we want to see the institutions come in, we do need to clean it up a little bit. We've got to clean up our act a little bit. From the perspective of the SEC, it makes sense. They're going to want to go after the lowest hanging fruit. They don't want to set a precedence and lose something, and create a precedent for other people to follow suit. So they're going after the blatant scams and the obvious hallmarks. I think I'd love to see some clarity. I'd love to see some precedents on which of some of these projects that are borderline between security, whether or not it's a security. I'd love to see them give a little bit more precedence on the actual inner workings of the coin, as opposed to just how it's sold and who got access to it. I'd love to see a little bit more on the token economics, how the inner workings of the token economics and how they function within the system. What aspects of that make it a security, what don't. I think having some of that would definitely give a little bit more clarity for people that are building, blockchain and,
Mm-hmm.
crypto projects. And so I think there's definitely this huge gray area. There's some things that are kind of clear you don't want to be doing, but there's this huge gray area where it's kind of halting innovation a bit, and it's it's certainly stopping people from staying onshore and working within within the U.S. boundaries.
Yeah, or it's just pushing people overseas, right? I mean, Singapore is the capital of crypto projects. Basically, everyone is got their company registered there. We've also seen other players coming in. France is trying to attract more crypto business to its shores with clear regulations, guaranteed banking access, and all these different things, as well as I think they've got like a crypto visa now in France, where if you want to come and start a crypto project, you can get visas and stuff like this. So I mean that's saying like, hey, we're open to crypto, come in and let's do that. And I think the U.S. will lose people to that. Obviously, everyone's access to the U.S. market. The U.S. market's massive. Everyone wants their crypto to be able to be listed on an exchange in the U.S., and preferably they want to be able to do raises in the U.S. and all this different stuff. But still, if the U.S. doesn't innovate, they will slowly lose that edge over time.
Yeah, for sure the everyone wants that access to the U.S. capital, and for sure there's a huge incentive to coming back onshore. And I think the of course the U.S. government bodies of course know that, and that's why they're taking the time to make sure they deliver properly. It sounds like as you mentioned, it sounds like we could be seeing some interesting regulation coming out. They've kind of hinted at something big coming along, but haven't really told us what it is. So definitely looking forward to seeing what that is.
Very cool stuff. Han, thanks so much for sitting down with me today and chatting a bit about crypto. And again, anybody who wants to learn more about Symmetry or just to check out some great news articles over on cryptobriefing.com, have links for those down below. Han, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lark. It's been a lot of fun. Talk to you soon.